This week on Quality Digest Live, have we accepted W. Edwards Deming's challenge to be agents of change?
Plus, we chat with Matt Littlefield of L&S Research about using closed-loop data for better customer engagement. That and more when we come back.
This week's sponsor of Quality Digest Live is Olympus, specializing in easy-to-use microimaging and metrology systems that provide the measurement and images you need.
Welcome back to Quality Digest Live for November 15th, 2013. QDL is your weekly look at who and what is making the news in the world of quality. I'm Dirk Ducharme, Editor-in-Chief of Quality Digest.
And I'm Quality Digest publisher Mike Richmond. Alrighty, first up in the news this week, in a recently released survey, Gallup says that North American workers are significantly more engaged than their counterparts around the world. The study, The State of the Global Workplace, was conducted by Gallup in a total of 142 nations. More than 200,000 adults aged 18 and over were asked about their engagement to their jobs through an assessment of 12 workplace elements. On average, 13% of workers worldwide were engaged with their work. The highest region for workplace engagement was the United States and Canada, where 29% of workers are engaged. On the other end of the spectrum, East Asia, represented mostly by manufacturing hubs like those found in China, showed a poor result of just 6% employee engagement. So, can we just jump to the conclusion then that higher paid workers are automatically more engaged? No,
I don't think so.
Not necessarily. Maybe, but not necessarily. The study found that what correlates more significantly is educational levels, but not necessarily in the ways that you might think. In developing economies, engagement trends sharply upward with education. That makes sense because those that are well educated are relatively rare in some of these areas, and they're going to tend to get and keep the kind of jobs that are easier to be more engaged with. In developed economies, however, there appears to be a slight bias towards disengagement among better educated workers. Why? It's kind of a little counterintuitive. So why is that? Well, according to the study, it's because these workers may feel that their talents are being underutilized. For example, in the United States, some studies estimate that up to half of all recent college graduates are either unemployed or working at jobs that don't require a college degree. The fact that there are so many highly educated people in economies such as these likely means that there just aren't enough truly engaging jobs to go around. So, in other words, you're well educated, maybe you have a master's degree, and you're working in a job that you don't need a master's degree. You're not going to be very well engaged then. Right. In the US, for instance, I think there just aren't a lot of jobs available, and we're going to maybe get to that in a moment, where those engaging jobs maybe just aren't really there. And maybe we need to look at how we get more engagement in their jobs by maybe having more people that can be engaged in what they're doing. I don't know. It's kind of a chicken and the egg thing, but I know you're going to talk about it here in a minute.
Yeah, and actually, if you got a comment about that or any other stories, be sure to get them to us during the show. Send to QDL@qualitydigest.com, and we will hopefully get your comment on the air.
And you're going to pick up on this.
I'm going to pick up on this.
Now
Actually, a couple weeks ago on the show, we covered a story by Tony Gilpin that was critical of the notion that industry, particularly manufacturing, is suffering from a skills gap. Tony and others don't believe that's true, that there are not enough workers that meet the skills needs for today's manufacturers. Gilpin was also critical of the idea that education was lacking when it came to preparing the workforce. Well, this week, we ran the opposite side of that. It was a survey from Bayer Corporation that also tackled the education and skills gap issue. This survey asked talent recruiters from Fortune 1000 companies what they are seeing in the field. That is, what their clients are looking for versus what they're actually seeing. Now, according to the survey, more and more companies, even those companies that traditionally aren't thought of as particularly techie companies or in the techie industries, are looking for 2- and 4-year graduates with some sort of science, technology, engineering, or math degree, the so-called STEM degrees. And they're coming up short. In other words, according to the recruiters, these companies are looking for skilled workers, science, technology, engineering, math, and they aren't finding them. Here are just a few of the results from the survey. Now remember, a STEM job, when we talk about a STEM job, this is a job that requires a 2-year or 4-year degree in science, technology, engineering, or math curriculum. The results, according to the survey, 9 in 10, 89%, of the Fortune 1000 talent recruiters say that today, 4-year STEM degree holders are as or more in demand than their counterparts without STEM degrees. So given the same kind of job, companies are now looking for people that have some sort of STEM degree as opposed to those that don't. 2/3 of the recruiters polled report that at their companies today, there are more new STEM jobs being created than non-STEM jobs. This is true even from traditionally non-STEM companies, or those companies that traditionally weren't thought of as those who wanted workers in science, technology, engineering, math. More than half of the recruiters in those companies said that this was still the case, that they're looking more for STEM workers than non-STEM. Only half of these Fortune 1000 recruiters say they can find adequate numbers of qualified job candidates with either 2 or 4-year degrees in a timely manner. More than half the recruiters in the manufacturing industry in particular say it is difficult. Now think about what we just said. Manufacturing you typically don't think of, and this was actually, Gilpin pointed to several different manufacturing type jobs like welders and that sort of thing. So you don't typically think of a welder as needing a science, technology, engineering, math degree. What they're saying is that even in manufacturing, half of the Fortune 1000 recruiters are saying that that is what they're looking for now, and they aren't finding them. Okay, of those who say that they cannot find adequate numbers of qualified STEM job candidates, the vast majority, more than 90%, believe it is because there is a shortage of qualified candidates who have the necessary STEM job skills. And this is what we typically think of really as the skills gap. So according to the survey, the lack of qualified candidates has led to a significant number of open, unfilled jobs at Fortune 1000 companies, particularly for 4-year STEM degree holders. Of those recruiters who say they can't find adequate numbers of qualified new hires with STEM degrees, nearly 70% report their companies have a significant number of open, unfilled STEM jobs for 4-year STEM degree holders, and half report vacancies for 2-year STEM degree holders. So if you think about this, this is really what we've been talking about, kind of what we've been hammering home, is that now these are the recruiters. Yeah. These are the people whose job is to find people to go into these companies. The recruiters are saying, the companies are saying we need this, and we're having a hard time finding them to fill those positions.
Well, just to set the stage and remind people a little bit, what Tony Gilpin essentially said in her piece was that this is kind of a, she used the word canard. Right. It's kind of a charade that manufacturers are saying that there's a skills gap, and really there isn't. And what they're doing is they're trying to foist the responsibility away from themselves because they don't want to pay for training. Right. They want to have these people trained when they walk in the door because it's more efficient for them that way. So what you're saying here in this study from Bayer and from what recruiters are saying is that probably isn't really the truth. That there really is a skills gap out there, that we need more people with STEM education.
Exactly, and I encourage you to read the article. I mean, there's a lot of information in the article to slog through. There's a ton of data, but the survey methodology is also robust. So check out the article, read the methodology. I mean, it seems like this is a really an up and up survey. And check out the data. I mean, it is really interesting. It kind of flies in the face of what Tony and some of the others were saying. So I encourage you to go out there and take a look at that. Yeah,
and that's right below the player page. You can look at that article. All the articles we're covering on today's show, of course, are down below, and you can check them out after you watch the show, and you can read more about the pieces that we're covering today.
That's right.
Okay, well, we're going to move on now to our features, and our first feature was a second part of an article from Trip Babbitt. And the name of the piece is Deming's Challenge for Us by Trip Babbitt, and that appeared in Tuesday's issue of Quality Digest Daily, part 2 of that. And the first part of that piece ran last month in October, and it kind of set the stage a little bit. Trip gave a little bit of a history lesson, which I always love, by challenging us to fulfill W. Edward Deming's mission, which was that management should see quality, not productivity, as the end game, as the real goal for manufacturing processes. And Trip takes pains to identify this as manufacturing. What he's talking about is manufacturing here. America lost its way a little bit in this, I think, after World War II. I think it's pretty well known that because of factors of just America's standing in the world versus the rest of the industrialized world, that America after World War II got in the habit of just being able to just kind of shovel out products without having to worry too much about quality. It was all about productivity because productivity equaled profit. And he didn't have to worry too much about quality because there was no competitors. Well, of course, that wasn't a situation that could last very long. And while America was going through that, the Japanese really kind of got it. And they got this idea of being efficient and embodying what became lean, mostly, I think, through the teachings of Deming, Joseph Duran, and a few other Americans. So that's the stage that Tripp's setting here. And in part two, what he's talking about is getting down to the business of actually how we can make these improvements, how we can be change agents within our organizations. And he starts by talking about the dangers of entropy. And entropy in this context really deals with the tendency of organizations to kind of dissipate their energy over the course of time because how do you get energy in your organization? You get it from your people, mostly bringing you ideas and being innovative. And if you don't have an outlet for that, if you don't have a process in which people can take that energy and put it to work, well, it's going to dissipate and your company is going to deteriorate and basically go downhill. And what he's saying here is that it puts the onus on making change, meaningful change for meaningful improvements, deep change, not just rearranging the deck chairs or buying new computers is the example that he uses, but deep change that really will move the needle for the organization as a culture and for customers. Those are the two things he's talking about here. So how do you really change for the better in a meaningful way? Well, you start, I think, and Tripp would agree, by looking at the perspective that really matters, the only perspective that really matters, which is that of the customer. Now, by looking at it from a customer focus, you really take a system approach to organizational improvement because many times in large enterprises, there's so many competing, and they are competing in many cases, competing silos of sales and marketing and R&D and all these different people that are doing different things. And they will oftentimes be at odds with each other. They'll have different goals.
We see it here.
We see it here, even in a small organization, right, where you have different goals. So the way to align those goals is to back it out and look at the perspective that really matters, the perspective of your customers. And if you look at it from that viewpoint, you'll know what you need to do to improve because you're hopefully going to be hearing the voice of your customer through what Tripp's referred to in the past and in this article as demand failure. It's a great concept, demand failure. It's almost counterintuitive when you say demand failure because what does that mean? Well, what it means is that customers will contact you with demands, requirements, things that you're not fulfilling. And if you fail to answer those demands, they'll call and call and call and call, and that's not very efficient. Ultimately, you'll probably lose them as a customer. It's amazing to me how much customers want to be loyal, though, as a side note to this, that, I look at that and I say, well, gosh, if a customer is going to call 30 times, in some cases, Tripp indicated, I look at that, I'm like, gosh, there's no way I'd hang with a company for 30 times. Now, maybe you're locked into a contract or something, but I mean, obviously, if the customers are not having their demands met, if you're failing to meet their demands, then you know what you need to do to improve. You just have to look at that data and say, well, gosh, we're getting calls on this, right? Repeatedly, from the same customer time and time again, and we're not solving it. If we want to improve, if we want to have a cultural improvement to our organization, we're going to fix that issue. The customers are telling us what we need to do. That's the perspective Tripp's talking about there. And being a change agent is understanding how to delve into that, roll up your sleeves, and begin to look at that information. So really understanding customer requirements and being willing to change to address them is the first step towards changing and improving the overall culture of an organization. Those two C's are the nexus of what he's talking about here. Being a change agent involves understanding your C customers, understanding your C culture, and understanding how to take the information from one and move it over to the other to build change, to build improvement in your organization. The other thing about this piece, which I think is really, really cool, is he mentions a lot of very profound thinkers. He mentions some really good books, some stuff that I didn't know about. I mean, there's some of the references he makes I wasn't familiar with, and I'm going to do a little bit of more research on my own to figure some of these things out and look at some of these references. But you may want to look at that too and start to maybe look at some of the books. He mentions a couple of really interesting books. He mentions some great thinkers like Maslow, and he talks about Maslow's hierarchy of needs and how that applies a little bit to what he's talking about with change, with deep change. And I think that too many times we think we're making change and we're not. We're doing the whole shuffling of the deck chairs, buying new computers, as he uses the example. And we're not really tackling the deep, meaningful things that are going to, again, make the difference for your customers. Listen to what they're saying, listen to what the demand failure is pointing to. and you'll understand how to be a real change agent that can improve your organization.
And sometimes it's once you start listening to your customer, it really challenges kind of sometimes even your own ideas behind what is right and wrong in the way you are running your company. I mean, particularly as a media company, there's always this divide between advertising versus editorial.
Sure.
But then when you start looking at it from the customer's point of view, you go, well, should there be as delineated a line as there currently is,
or should there sometimes be more of a line? I mean, you listen to your customers and you determine for that particular instance what that reality is.
Right.
Tripp talks in the piece about conscious incompetence and unconscious incompetence. And when you listen to your customers, you may still have incompetence, but at least you'll be conscious of your incompetence.
Right.
That gives you a fighting chance. But I think if you don't have that, if you're unconsciously incompetent, then the game's kind of over.
Okay.
Yeah, good piece by Tripp.
Good piece by Tripp.
Yep.
All right. And
now,
as usual, if you've got comments on any of this stuff,
write us. We always encourage you to do that at qdl@qualitydigest.com.
Okay. Many see Twitter and other social media chatter as really kind of an overwhelming and unstructured mess of information. But some innovators see it really as a gold mine for product quality data. Now, here to talk about the role of social media and really more important, how it can be harnessing social media, strangely enough,
that's right,
as part of a closed loop quality system is Matt Littlefield, President and Principal Analyst for LNS Research. Hi, Matt. Hey, I think we're audio up. You there, Matt?
Excellent. I am here. Can you hear
awesome.
me?
Thanks, man.
We can.
All right, great.
Okay. Before we get started, first of all, let's just define a term here. What do you mean by a closed loop quality system?
That's a great smile.
That's a great smile, Matt. That's awesome. Okay. Well, while we're getting Mac back on the line, I'll have him confirm this. But I think what he's talking about by a closed loop quality system is that's where your inputs, and he's going to talk about this, things like social media, and I think he means things like Facebook and Twitter and so on and so forth. And I think he's even talking about things like Internet of Things, which we'll get to. How you harness the data from that, bring it back into your quality system as a means of feeding your improving your quality system based on that data. Hey, Matt, are you there?
I am. Couldn't have said it better myself.
Did I get that about right? It's basically it's using social media and so forth as a kind of a feedback, right?
Yeah, exactly right. There's a lot of companies today. The sales and marketing organizations are pushing out into social media, trying to do reputation management, consensus management, understanding what the social sphere is saying about their products and services. That's what we think of with the customer-centric organization. Where we see a gap is in the quality organization. They're not necessarily thinking about how they can connect that data back into their closed-loop quality system, which is the idea that quality isn't just a manufacturing issue or engineering issue. You have to understand the full life cycle of quality right from the customer back to the product development.
And this is where social media fits in, right? I mean, social media you might think of as this is kind of your direct connection, grassroots connection in a way to how your product or service is perceived. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, traditionally, many quality organizations dealt with customer complaints, right? So they had software and systems and services to deal with those customer complaints. But more and more often, that's not how customers want to interact with the manufacturer or the service provider, right? They're more likely to go to Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and post a picture of what's wrong with that particular product and express their view that way, than call a 1-800 number or clip a UPC card and send it back to the manufacturer. So manufacturers have to react to the way that their consumers want to communicate. And that applies to both quality as well as the sales and marketing organization.
Matt, it's a little sophisticated and it's a little subtle too, because customers today using social media are really, they're really attuned to the messages that you're sending. So how does I don't want to use the word control, but how does a manufacturer or a quality organization let's say control that message when maybe there's something that is out there that's not to their liking? How do they subtly change it, spin that a little bit to something that works better for them?
Yeah, I think the sales and marketing folks are out there doing that, right? If you look at the manufacturer organizations, if you want to get a response from a manufacturer or an airline, any type of company that interfaces directly with customers, Twitter is very often your best way to do it. They're monitoring that, so the monitoring piece is happening, and the engagement is an important part. So companies that aren't yet engaging with their customers through social media are missing an opportunity. Where I think the gap, and this is very fluid and evolving, but where the gap is all that data analytics from the social media sphere isn't necessarily getting back into engineering decisions or quality decisions, which is what we're advocating for. And I think it even goes beyond just social media. There's a lot of new and innovative data sources out there that can feed back into the quality system. If you look at smart machines, the Internet of Things, there's so many more connected devices out there today in the world. In the automotive space, you have smart cars; in the aerospace and defense, industrial equipment, home goods with the durable goods like appliances. All of these are connected today, Ethernet enabled with the communications back to the cloud. So capturing that data is an important piece of the quality story as well.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit. I mean, I guess without getting overly technical, but how in the heck do you gather and use social media or Internet of Things, data from the Internet of Things and so? I mean, this is such a free-form communications medium. I mean, how do you suck this data in and actually make use of it?
Sure. So there's lots of new database technologies out there, and many of the largest technology companies in the world are very focused on these issues. So there's a whole set of technologies out there that are in place to help you capture that data and organize that data. What we think is missing is the idea of how quality can capture some of this data. So if you look at an automotive companies today, they have connected cars. They want to start tying the maintenance that they can predict based on the car's wear and tear, and then schedule maintenance in an interactive way based on how the customer is using the car. So there's a wealth of failure data that's being generated from that, and those customers are all very concerned with, let's say, their warranty costs and their warranty reserve rates. So if we can start mining some of this service data from an analytical perspective to better inform and tweak our warranty costs, that can be a huge savings that is really a mission of many corporate quality organizations to bring down that warranty cost. So the data is there, but it's harvesting it.
So this might come in where you talked about the Internet of Things. So let me see if I'm guessing this right here. Is that, so for instance, if we're talking about automotive, more and more cars are connected. So maybe you could be, mining, I don't know, performance data or, engine analytics and so forth from, let's say, cars, and feeding that back into your quality system kind of at an aggregate level to see how particular models or so forth are performing over time? Am I just out?
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. There's business intelligence companies out there. It's the European technology companies that are out there that are designing the solutions to collect and analyze that data. The gap is then integrating that back in with our quality systems. So the data is there. The companies are collecting the data today. And you talked about skills gap earlier. A lot of companies now have that skills gap to be able to do the data analysis and build the models to capture the value from that data they're collecting. So I think that's the key that we're trying to help companies understand is you are collecting the data. The quality organizations might not know about that data being collected or how to connect into it. But there's just a wealth of opportunity there.
So is this data, do you see this data being used more on a predictive level to predict where quality might be going, if it's trending up or down, or do you also use it as a means of, I don't know, correcting an existing service issue or correcting an existing product issue?
It can really do both, right? So obviously, when you're talking about Internet of Things and connected cars, that's more reactive. That is information that it's happened, right? That's an adverse event. Something's gone wrong, and now you're sensing that. But the idea is to connect that. So if you have a robust quality system, like a corrective and preventive action system, audit management system, you have good manufacturing systems, you can start to understand for that particular product, what were the conditions of manufacturing, what were the supplier issues that might have contributed to that product issue you're seeing in the field 6 months or a year later. So that's the idea of closed loop quality management. So if you have these robust quality systems that are connecting end to end, supplier, design, manufacturing, and you understand that process overall, it's time to start connecting that to the field data that might be in disparate systems that we're just now starting to think about how to mine that data. So I think it's important to bring these two worlds together, your robust end-to-end quality systems, but then also how can those help us be predictive of what's happening in the field today?
Well, Matt, well said. I think that's a good place to end it for now. But we're going to be revisiting this next Tuesday.
Interesting topic.
Yes, the 19th of November, we're going to be revisiting this. Matt, you and Dirk together are doing a webinar on the 19th at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. And people out there want to check that out. You can go right below the player page and register for that right now. So, Matt, we will see you on Tuesday. Thanks for joining us today, and we'll catch you then.
Thanks, guys. Really excited. Looking forward to it.
Thanks, Matt.
See you.
Okay, well, before we wrap up our show, a bit of late-breaking news from NIST.
Yes.
Commerce Secretary Penny Pritzker has announced the 3 U.S. organizations that will receive the 2013 Malcolm Baldrige National Quality Award. Yay! This is the nation's highest presidential honor for performance excellence through innovation, improvement, and visionary leadership. The 2013 Baldrige Award recipients were selected from a field of 22 applicants that were evaluated by an independent board of examiners in 7 areas defined by the Baldrige criteria. Those are leadership, strategic planning, customer focus, measurement analysis and knowledge management, workforce focus, operations focus, and results. An organization may compete for the award in one of 6 categories: manufacturing, service, small business, healthcare, education, and nonprofit, which also includes government agencies. All of this year's winners are from the healthcare and education sectors, actually, which has been an interesting growth in those sectors for the Baldrige actually since they've introduced those 2 sectors, where it was like maybe 5 years ago, something like that?
Especially healthcare.
Especially healthcare,
yes.
So congratulations to the following 3 organizations: Pewaukee School District in Pewaukee, Wisconsin for education, Baylor Regional Medical Center at Plano in Plano, Texas, and of course that's in healthcare, and Sutter Davis Hospital right in our backyard in Davis, California.
Go NorCal.
There you go. Also in healthcare. Good job, guys.
Yeah, excellent, John. That's always such an important moment in our industry.
Yeah, the Baldrige is a big thing. It's a big important award to win.
Gosh, these organizations work so hard. Even the ones that don't win the Baldrige, just to be nominated. I mean, it's an incredible honor, and it shows that an organization really understands the processes that go into quality improvement. So congratulations to those 3.
That's right.
Okay, well, that's our show for this week. But before we close, I'd like to offer our thanks to this week's sponsor, Olympus America. Discover another dimension in microimaging and metrology with test, measurement, inspection, and imaging instruments designed for high precision quality control and R&D. Olympus engineered solutions enhance quality and productivity in industrial markets around the world. So for more information, click on the banner ad just below or just to the right of this video screen.
That's right. And don't miss next week's LNS webinar, sponsored by IQS. The webinar will be presented by today's guest, Matt Littlefield. We just heard from him. And we'll focus on how EQMS, closed-loop quality strategies, and harmonized quality processes for CAPA, audit management, complaint management, and more can help companies respond to the demands of becoming a customer-centric organization. Remember, that webinar is next Tuesday, November 19th at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. Access the registration form in Mike Roberts' article. The link to that is below the player page, or actually I think we actually have a link directly to the registration page.
Right there. So
right below the player.
Click over and join us on Tuesday, next Tuesday the 19th.
Internet of Things and social media and all that and how it ties in. Fascinating topic.
You saw a little bit of it today. Matt Littlefield is very eloquent, great presenter. Dirk, you do a nice job interacting with Matt. So definitely mark on your calendar, join us for that one, and we'll see you then on Tuesday. So that's our show for this week. Thanks again for joining us. Thank you, Matt, for joining us. Thank you to all of you for being out there. Olympus for sponsoring the show as well. We will see you next Monday with a full week of QDD, and next Friday here with QDL. So
there you go.
Join us then.
So long.
Bye.
Thank you.